All right, so the first thing that we're going to talk about for measurement, and you notice that they have the word imperial. Does anybody know what that refers to? Imperial is the old way of measuring, and the Americans still use it. So just think USA for the imperial. So this would be like your feet and inch, yard and mile. Stuff that we don't typically use in Canada, although you probably are aware of feet and inch. And probably pounds, how much you weigh is in pounds, okay? So this is the imperial. Like this might be a multiple choice question. What is imperial? What country uses imperial? Or something like this. The other one is metric. The whole world uses metric. The United States, for some reason, are still using imperial. Okay? So those are the two that you need to know. Imperial versus metric. They might have metric down at the bottom here. Yeah, it's at the bottom here. So you can just take a look at the bottom of the page, and there's a summary for the two systems. Now, there is a keyword that you're going to need to be aware of for this course, and this course, probably you'll only ever see this, is a referent. What English word is referent really similar to? Reference. Reference. So if you're talking to somebody and they don't really know what you're talking about, how do you explain something to somebody? You try to offer ideas that they already are familiar with. So if I was to say, how far is it to the classroom next door, you would say, well, maybe like, I don't know, 5 steps. What's a step? Is that a step? Do we all know what a step is? That's a referent. Okay? People that raise horses and like, you know, deal with those animals and they do horse racing and all that stuff, they use the hand. They call it like, how many hands is your horse? Okay. Whatever, right? That's just a referent. Okay? So let's go through this chart. If things are small, what kind of a referent could you use? Just think of something maybe on your human body. A finger? Yeah, maybe like the width of your pinky. Maybe you could use that. Width of pinky. Anybody want to estimate how, depending on how big your pinky is, like what unit is your pinky? The width, not the length. Good. Centimeter. What about something medium? It's pretty common. I would probably go with your length of your foot, because they use that. Like, how tall am I? Just throw it out there. How tall am I? 6 foot? I'm very close to 6 feet. I'm just under 6 feet. That's how tall I am. So if I took off my shoe, how many shoes would I be? Roughly 6 of those shoes, roughly. The foot's pretty common, FT. Now if I want to measure something large, now maybe I'll use the length of my pace, or my stride, or my walk, whatever you want to call it. What do you think that would be, roughly? What's pretty common that we all use? Yeah, good, 1 meter. Or a yard. If you've ever played like pickup football, maybe in elementary school, you'd pace out 10 yards. You'd be like, okay, here's 10. We got to make it that far. Or like if you want to go to the 7-Eleven, maybe it's a couple football fields. You guys ever hear that? Well, it's a couple football fields. Okay? So those are reference. Pretty straightforward. Now, before modernization, lots of different civilizations used different things to measure things, because everybody has to know, you know, the same standard. Okay? And you can see that word at the bottom. It's highlighted there, standardization. Standardization, like people have to know what the standard is. If a meter is a meter in Canada, it better be a meter in the USA. It better be a meter in Europe. Okay? So this is standardization. You can see some reference on this Egyptian diagram. And there's lots of reading out there about this kind of stuff, but we're just going to pretty much glance over it. Okay? I probably want to just get right into unit conversions this first day. So let's talk about some units that you have to be familiar with. Your height, what are you going to use for imperial? Your height, I already mentioned it. Feet. And you would also have some subunits of inch. Like I might be 5 foot 11 inches. What about the photograph that would go in your wallet? Remember sometimes they say 4x6 or 5x7. What do they mean? Yeah, those are inches. The distance between towns, this is maybe between cities. Yeah, miles, good. M-I-L-E-S, miles. I guess I can spell the whole word, then might as well. What about the length of a driveway? This is equivalent to the meter, but in imperial would be the yard. So football uses yard. The CFL and the NFL. What about my computer screen? That'd be like your TV screen. Be like, oh, I'm going to go get a 50-inch TV from Best Buy. So you'd use inch. And the thickness of a book, again, that would be inch. Now let's try to make sure we can understand what those would be in metric. Now, which one's equivalent to yard for metric? Not equivalent, but in the same sense you'd use it. Meter. And I don't spell things the Canadian way, like R-E. I always spell things the American way, E-R. The distance between towns, not the meter, but the kilometer or the kilometer. The wallet photograph wouldn't be in inches, it would be in centimeters. And this stuff should all be familiar from previous math classes. Your height would also be in centimeters. If you get your ID from the Alberta government, it'll tell you your height in centimeters and your weight in kilograms. So it's metric. Even though nobody in regular life talks about height and weight in metric, most people use imperial. So the computer screen, like, nobody uses centimeters and inches. Everyone uses inches, I mean. Nobody uses centimeter. Thickness of a book, you know, if it's a really thin book, what's smaller than a centimeter? Millimeter. Okay, and then in this class, you'll never go lower than millimeter. Like there's micrometer, there's nanometer. You don't have any of that. Okay, and you don't go higher than kilometer in this class. And you don't have anything outside of inches, feet, yard, and miles. So that's a complete list of everything you need to know. So the metric system is built on the idea of being simple. Okay, that's the whole purpose of it being built. So what's the most simple thing in math? That would be base 10. What is base 10? 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. You're just adding zeros, right? Or taking away zeros. So this is how it's built. So if meter was 1, how many centimeters would you have? How many little ticks on the meter stick? 100. So you notice dm is in between there. Which factor of 10 would go there? 10. What's after 100? 1,000. So in terms of your exponents, this would be 1 to the 0, 1 to the 1, 1 to the 2, and 1 to the 3. Pardon me, those are all 10s. Let me just erase those, start over. 10 to the 0, 10 to the 1, 10 to the 2, 10 to the 3. So it's just factors of 10, and how many factors of 10? Now look at that pattern. 0, 1, 2, 3 as I go to the right. So what do you think it's going to be on the left? Yeah, negatives. -1, -2, -3. So what does that mean? That means if I wanted to go from meter to kilometer, what would I have to do? Times 1,000 or divide 1,000? Divide 1,000. If I wanted to go this way, I would times 1,000. It's really just a step ladder. Each step is one factor of 10. You're either going to multiply by 10 or divide by 10. So for example, if I had 500 centimeters, how many meters is that? It's 5, right? It's pretty obvious. 500 centimeters is 5 meters. Well, how do I know? If it was like a more challenging one. 1 step, 2 steps. Divide by 10, divide by 10. So 500 becomes 50, and then 50 becomes 5. So really, what you did was 500 divided by 10 2 times. All right, what if I had 3 kilometers and I wanted to know how many meters that is? 3 kilometers. How many meters is that? Just yell it out. This is really easy. How many meters is 3 kilometers? 3,000. How do you know that? How many step jumps is it? 1, 2, 3. So because I'm going that direction, I would times by 10 how many times? 3 times. And I would get 3,000 meters. So how do you know, Mr. Lineweaver, when do I divide, when do I times? How do I know? Well, I would say, well, you need to think. And you'd be like, well, I don't think, I just need to know the answer. Some people really have a hard time taking 2 seconds to themselves and just thinking. In math, there is a lot of stuff you can memorize, yes. You can definitely pass a course without knowing much if you memorize things. Okay, but you'll never really have a really true understanding unless you don't think. So let me help you think. And this is the thinking that I do. If I start with kilometer, and then I go to meter, so kilometer to meter, did my unit get bigger or smaller? My unit got smaller. The distance stays the same. 3 kilometers is 3 kilometers. But if I'm measuring it in smaller units, the same distance, I should have more or less. This big distance is 3 kilometers. Now I'm going to measure this big distance in smaller units. Should I have more of them? Right. So here's the thinking. If the unit decreases, the number will increase. And then you just have to think about how many times do I times by 10. And you'll have a formula sheet with that on there, so you just have to move your finger along the line. And vice versa. What happens if the unit gets larger? If the unit gets larger, then the number gets smaller. Okay, we have a newspaper, blah, blah, blah. And they give us a distance from the Earth to the Moon. But they give us in a really stupid unit, centimeters. Like Earth to Moon, that is such a massive distance, and then they give it to you in centimeters. Makes no sense. So you have to put it in an appropriate unit. I would put this in kilometers and then I would put it in scientific notation. That's what I would do. Okay, so let's do that. I want to convert this unit into kilometers. So did my unit get bigger or smaller? Centimeter to kilometer. The unit got, so the number should get, so do I times or divide? Times by 10, you get larger. Divide by 10, you get smaller. So I need to divide by 10. But how many times? Centimeter to kilometer. Unit got bigger, so the number gets smaller. How many jumps from centimeter to kilometer? 5 or 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need to divide by 10 5 times. How many fingers you guys got? That's why we use base 10. Human beings understand base 10. So base 10, every decimal gets moved. How many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the new spot for the decimal. Because the decimal's on the end, right? The decimal's on the end. Move it 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So you have 38. You got a 440. And then you got a 3. That's really weird. So let's make that a little bit sexier. 384, 403 kilometers. That's what we're looking for. 384,403 kilometers. Interesting fact, you could fit every planet in our solar system in that distance. It's pretty cool. Now, this is still kind of weird. In scientific notation, you do something like this. 3.84 times 10 to the 3 kilometers. This is what you do in science class. You don't need all that accuracy. It's like 384,000 kilometers. Okay? So in math class, that's what you're looking for, the one with the arrow. In science class, you would use some scientific notation. So I moved it 3 more times. Sorry, I put the decimal in the wrong spot. Shouldn't be a decimal. Give me a second there. That's better. So it doesn't ultimately matter. So make sure you do the one with the arrow. Okay, let's do the next one. A worm. Obviously, you wouldn't measure a worm with meters. That's ridiculous. So again, this whole strategy where it's like, okay, meter to, you guys pick which unit. Centimeter, millimeter, what do you think? Centimeter? Sure. I think millimeter would be fine. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. How many moves from meter to centimeter? 2 jumps, right? 2 jumps. Now, does the unit get bigger or smaller? Meter to centimeter. The unit got smaller. The centimeter is a smaller unit. The centimeter is your pinky. The meter is your step. This is a meter, right? And a centimeter would be 1 pinky. And I got 100 pinkies on here. So if the unit gets smaller, the number gets bigger. Good. So unit got smaller, number gets bigger. How many jumps? 2 jumps. So where's our number? 0.0019 times 10 to the 2. How many decimal moves? And in which direction? 2 to the right. So it's 0.19 centimeters. How many millimeters is that? How many millimeters is that? One more move, right? Millimeter is one more jump over, one more factor of 10, one more decimal move. So, metric conversions. Pretty sure it's taught in elementary school. It's not a difficult concept, and you need to have this mastered so that we can do harder things. Often you're given a question, and then you're asked to convert, and then you have to solve some problem. Okay, so let's just do a couple of these quickly. Kilometer to meter, that unit got smaller, so my number needs to get bigger. How many moves? 1, 2, 3. So times by 10 3 times, and I get 30,000. See how quickly that can be? I'm going to do the first column, you're going to do the second column. Okay, centimeter to millimeter. Unit got smaller, number gets bigger by how many jumps? One jump, 27. Not too bad, eh? It's just decimal moves. Meter to millimeter. Unit got smaller, so number gets bigger. How many moves? 3. So times by 10 to the 3, that's 3 moves. 1, 2, 3. So what do I put in that little place? A placeholder, which is 0, 5210. A placeholder. Okay, HM stands for hectometer. Nobody uses that. And DM stands for decimeter. Really, nobody uses that. So you'd only see that in like a Math 10, and then you probably never see it again in your life. So just learn it, forget about it later. It's just the way it goes. The other one is DAM. That one's decameter. Okay, so I'll just write that one. This one's deca. I think this one's hecto. Or hecta, I can't remember. Doesn't really matter. Hecto, deca, and then this one is the deci. So decimeter, nobody really uses that. Obviously you need to know centi, that's the most important. Centi as well as milli. Here's your meter. That's like your standard. The meter is like your standard in the middle. And then of course you should know kilo. So those ones in red you'll need, especially in a science class. The hecto, deca, and deci, it's pretty rare. You would just get it on like a test and then you'd forget about it. Okay, so HM to DM, how many jumps? 3? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 jumps. And the unit is getting smaller, so the number gets bigger. So how many jumps? 1 would be 47. 2 is 470. 3 would be 4,700. 4,700. Okay, I'll pause the video. You guys can try the second column. So we'll just jump into the imperial system here, and this chart here is the one that you'll be given on your formula sheet, so I'll get that to you soon. This will be on your formula sheet, the exact one. And the international system is called the SI. So this guy right here, SI, it's French, but we'll just say it's the international, if I could spell, international system. If you see that on a test, what they're talking about is metric. Okay, so if you see SI, that is metric. And the SI system says base 10, straightforward calculations. However, this imperial system, based on the use of fractions, is also very prevalent. So what they do is they say, okay, 1 mile, That's going to be 5,280 of my shoes. It's completely arbitrary, it's random, and it's odd. Why is a foot broken into 12 inches? Why is it 12? I can't tell you. Why is a pound broken into 16 ounces? I can't tell you that. All I know is what the numbers are. So these are called proportions, and they're used in conversion, a proportionality conversion to do these. So for example, 1 yard is 3 feet. So what would 2 yards be? 6 feet. And 3 yards would be? But going the other way is hard. What would 5 feet be? 5 feet. 5 feet is how many yards? It's 1 for sure, right? And how much is left over? Let's just think about that. 1 yard has 3 divisions. 1, 2, 3 divisions. What if we had 5 divisions? How many yards is that? Well, you have 1, 2, 3, and how many left over? 2 more, right? So 5 feet would be 1 yard, 2 feet. What's 5 divided by 3? 1 and 2 remainder. So with this kind of stuff, you have to know your division with remainders. And I will show you some of those examples. So it's still timesing and dividing, just like metric. It was timesing by 10, dividing by 10. But these ones, like if I want to do conversions between feet and inch, you either times by 12 or you divide by 12. So how much is 5 feet? How many inches is 5 feet? 5 feet is how many inches? How'd you do that? You times by 12. Well, how do you know you have to times? Did your unit get bigger or smaller, feet to inch? Feet to inch, unit got smaller, so my number has to get bigger, so I times by 12. 60. All right, what if I had 40 inches? How many feet is that? Inch to feet. The unit got inch to feet. The unit got bigger, so my number needs to get smaller. So I divide by 12. What's 40 divided by 12? I don't know, 3 and a little bit. Count by 12s. 12, 24, 36. That's pretty close to 40, right? So it's 3 feet for sure. 3 feet gets you to 36 inches, but not quite 40. How much is left over? 4. So you'd be 3 feet 4 inch. You'd have to add another. So that's division with remainder. You could also do decimals. What's 4 inches out of 12 inches? A third? So this would be 3.333333. Go in your calculator, go 40 divided by 3. Or pardon me, 40 divided by 12. Go to your calculator, do 40 divided by 12 in your calculator. .3333, right? So you get the 3, that's this. And then why do you get this 3 repeater? Because 4 inches out of your remainder, or out of your divisor 12 is a third. 4 divided by 12 is a third. That's going to be some of the harder questions. And you'll see it when they come. And I'll remind you about it when they come. Right now it's sort of just a warm-up and a bit of a get back in the game, the math game. So on the next question, I'd just like you to highlight this word here, scale. And then highlight this 1 to 24 scale. So what does that mean, that the photograph has been scaled to 1 to 24? That means whatever the unit is, you have to multiply by 24 to get the guy in real life. Okay? So if I use my ruler, and I'll just do this quickly. It's on my screen. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'll just do it quickly. Let's say it's like 8 centimeters. Let's just say this is 8 centimeters. How would you scale that to real life? 8 times 24, yeah. So this guy here would be the diagram or the model. And then this guy here, the 24, would be the original. And then what you would do is you would do a proportionality. So if I know it goes 1 to 24, then it would go 8 to x. Now think about that for a sec, and I'll be patient. In the scale, 1 represents the model, the picture. This is the picture on the paper. I use my ruler, I got this. So 1 goes with 8. 24 goes with x. 24 is real life. X is real life. So how do you solve for x? This is a must. You absolutely need to know this. You'll never have success in high school if you can't cross multiply. You have to know cross multiply. 24 times 8. And then what do you divide by? 1, which doesn't change anything. 24 times 8. 192. And what unit is that? If 8 was in centimeters, then 192 is in centimeters. You guys okay with that? This cross multiplication thing here, just memorize it now. You always times the two numbers that cross and divide the thing that's across x. So 24 times 8 divided by the thing across x. You guys can memorize that? That's something you just memorize. Okay? Let's keep rolling. So you're going to have to use this chart. You might have to flip back and forth. You're going to have to use this chart for the next page. So you might have to flip back and forth if you need it. So let's fill in the blank. Converting from one imperial unit to another usually involves solving a proportion. The recipe says I need 1 cup of water for 2 cups of rice or whatever. But what if my whole family's coming and I need to make 5 cups of rice? You have to adjust. That adjustment is made through a proportion, or else the recipe's screwed up. Your rice is going to taste really bad if you can't follow the recipe. So same here. Identify the two. Feet to inch. Go to your chart. Write it down. What does it say between feet and inch? 1 foot is equal to how many? 12 inch. And do not be lazy about this. If you're lazy about this, you might make a mistake. If you're smart and you're lazy, you'll probably be okay. If you struggle with this and you're lazy, there's no hope. So, why am I saying don't be lazy? Write these units. Write these units. Then you can just figure it out. Because I have 4 feet, I know that 4 feet goes with 1 feet. I line up those units. And then this is x inches. And if I can do that, I will never screw this up. So if 1 is 12, how much is 4? Yeah, 48. The cross multiply would look like this. 12 times 4, and then divide by 1. Okay, let's do the next one. Yards to feet. Go to the chart, write it down. What is the relationship between yards and feet? 1 yard goes with 3 feet. What did they give me? 4 yards. Where do I put the 4? With the yards. Yards goes with yards. Then this will be x feet. And then you can cross multiply. Clearly this is 12. 3 times 4 divided by 1. Now the next one, 5 1/4. I mean, most people know the decimal for quarter, right? What's the decimal for quarter? 0.25, right? 25 cents, a quarter. But if it was a harder fraction, what would you do? I don't know how to get a decimal. How do I even put that in my calculator? So something like this. All you have to do in your calculator, go 1 divided by 4. You get 0.25. The calculator will do that, 1 divided by 4. And then you know that this is 5.25 miles. Okay? So don't let the fractions mess with you. Put the fraction in the calculator, get the appropriate decimal. So all I'm doing is converting 5.25 miles into feet. Go to my chart. What's the relationship between mile and feet? One mile is equal to 5,280 feet. Is that right? And now I have miles or feet? I got miles. Put it here. And then this is x feet, and then I can cross multiply. Timesing those two and dividing 1. 27 something? $27,720, is that right? Okay, let's try number 4. What's the problem with number 4? Go look at your chart. Is there a mile to inch conversion? So you have to do 2. You have to do 2. Go mile to feet, and then feet to inch. Is your unit getting bigger or smaller? The units are getting smaller. Do you agree? So your number should get... So now you know you're just timesing. 14 miles times by what to get to feet? 5280? 14 times 5280. So there are shortcuts here. This is a shortcut. 73,920. And then I'm still getting smaller. So how many feet, how many inch in a feet times by 12? And you get 887,040. So there are shortcuts. If you can understand proportion, especially if the unit gets smaller, the number gets bigger. That idea. What time you guys out of here? Block 3 goes to 1:30. Oh my gosh. Okay, well let's just keep going. Okay, I'm going to put a star on 5 and 6 because these are hard. These ones you have to think about division with remainder. I'll write that in with you. Division with remainder. So how do I know it's division, first of all? Like those other ones, they're all times, right? We're all timesing those ones. What do you notice about all those other ones? What do you notice? The units are always getting smaller. Feet to inch, smaller. Yard to feet, smaller. Mile to inch, smaller. So I'm just timesing. But take a look at 5. what's happening? You're going inch to feet. So if your unit gets bigger, the number has to get smaller, and you're dividing by whole numbers. So you got to go 66 divided by 12. Okay, I'll write that in. I'll write in the full thing. I know that 1 foot is 12 inch, and they gave me inch, so I put it over here this time, and then this is x feet. And you solve this with cross multiplication. Look what happens. Am I timesing by 12 anymore? No. Because 12 is across the x, I have to divide by 12. 66 times 1, does that change anything? So 66 divided by 12 is x. Like that. 66 divided by 12. Is that perfect? Does 66 go into 12 perfectly? No. Count by 12s with me. 12, 24, 36, 48, 60. So for sure you have 5 feet. How many left over? We're at 60, right? So 6 more. Okay, now go to your calculator. Go 66 divided by 12. And what do you get? 5.5. What the heck is going on, you guys? So what does this 0.5 represent? .5 is half. Do you agree? 6 inches out of 12 inches is half. 6 is half of 12. Okay, let's keep trying this. Next one. We're going from feet to yard. Unit got bigger. So our number should get smaller. What's the relationship between feet and yard? So I got to divide by 73. I got to divide by 3 because there's 3 feet in every yard. I don't really want to count this many times, so I'm just going to use my calculator. What's 73 divided by 3? 24.3 repeating. So for sure there's how many yards? 24. That's the perfect whole number. So you have 24 perfect groups of 3. What's 24 perfect groups of 3? 72. So how much is left over? 1. Because why? 72 is less than 73 by 1. You need to know how many perfect groups and then what's the leftover. That's division with remainder. And then if you do 1 divided by 3, what do you get? That's this 0.33333333333. Okay, 2 more to go. 6'7". This is quite tall, like NBA height. I'm only 6 feet, so I'm not even close. So like 7 inches taller than me. This is quite tall. And they just want inches. This one's probably on your test for sure. Different number though. I just want inches. Right now I already have some inches, but I got this feet. So all I got to do is convert the feet. What's feet to inch? 12. Do I times by 12 or divide by 12? The unit got smaller, so my number should get, so I times by 12. 6 by 12 is 72. Plus I already got these 7 here, so add another 7 and I got 79 inch. 79 inch. And again, you can see, like, what if you were given 79 inches and you were asked to go feet an inch? 79 has 6 perfect groups and 7 left over. This is the remainder. This 7 is the remainder. Next one is challenging. Yards to mile. Yards to mile. Unit got bigger. Number gets smaller. What do I divide by yards to miles? 1760. That's just from your chart. 4215 dividing 1760. It's some craziness, like 2.394, blah, 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 blah. So for sure there's 2 miles. You have 2 perfect groups of 1760. 2 perfect groups of 1760 is, using my calculator, 3520. So what's the remainder from 3520? 4215 take away 3520. That's the remainder. Division with remainder. 695. Yikes. That's it for the video and the lesson.